Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Ask a Trans Woman. We've been gone for a while, a lot's happened, and as you can see, we are not in our usual location. That is our hotel room. The reason for the delay is in part the damage we sustained due to Hurricane Ian. If you've been following our home renovation series, we've been slowly recovering from Hurricane Ian. It's been, by the time we're done with everything, it'll be almost 2 months. And so that's a main reason why we have not been filming. Prior to that, there were just some delays related to my surgery that I wanted to get that stuff done. And here we are. So that's why we are in a hotel room, why things are a mess, but hopefully very soon we will be back home in a brand new studio. Technically the same studio, but we're going to completely redesign it. So it's going to be fun. Moving on to the questions. What's our first question, Lindsay?
What has been some of your personal favorite Halloween costumes?
Well, this is an interesting question because what of my are my personal favorite Halloween costumes, and I was never really into Halloween as a kid. Like maybe for like a couple of years, but I kind of got out of that phase pretty quickly. So Halloween was never that big of a deal for me until I started to get a sense of feeling trans. And I've only ever dressed up during my since my transition once. I skipped this year's Halloween because of everything. But last year I did a Halloween costume at my job where it was actually a 2-part costume. I was clearly making up for lost time. As you can see here, I was Cruella from the Emma Stone Cruella version, live action. And I did actually a transformation. I couldn't do what she did in the movie, obviously, because that requires like a really complex like flash paper dress that I wasn't going to be able to do. And you know, safety concerns. But we were doing like a fashion show at work. And so when everybody lined up, I made sure to go last. And I just ran to the bathroom, did a quick change, and came out in this, because nobody saw me, and did a whole thing. So I actually wore not just the, like just kind of a black like vest thing that I had, I transformed into like the actual red dress that she wears in the movie in the big party scene. So that was a lot of fun. Plus at the time, my hair was two-toned because I was going with an undercut and I was only dyeing the top of it. And so I had kind of like the Cruella like white-black look going. It was really fun.
All right. If you could be any character for a day, who would it be and what would you do as them?
All right, so I think the obvious answer to this question, like if I could be any character for a day, who would I be and what would I do? The obvious answer is Cinderella. I actually have this idea. What I would desperately love to do, and I pray that someday someone at Disney sees this. I would love to go through the process of being an in-park character performer for one day as Cinderella. And like I can already hear the comments, but like what I want to do is document the process. I've seen it myself. I know, as a former cast member, I know what those character performers go through with hair and makeup and all of that, and you know, the wigs and everything. I would just love to have that experience. I think it would just be a great like cross-branding thing with me and Disney. I know it'll never happen unless, you know, somebody in the character department is like, hey, this would be really great for social media. But outside of that, like for me, it's like I would love to be like a Marvel character. You know, it's easy to say someone like Captain America or Tony Stark. I think I'd have to go with She-Hulk right now, because the ability to be myself and then transform when I need to, but then go back, like to have that strength and to feel that safety would just be, that would be a game changer. Plus, the recent Disney Plus show is just, it's like my favorite thing ever. So
This is more of an advice question.
okay.
Alright, so we have I'm guessing a straight man
Mm-hmm.
who fantasizes about being penetrated by men, but only when they're wearing women's clothing.
Okay.
So this person's asking, what should I do if I like to wear panties and women's underwear?
So, I remember seeing this question come through on NGL, which of course, if you have questions for next week's episode, there will be a link to NGL in the description. That's one way that we are going to be pulling questions for moving forward. So, what this overall situation is describing, based on the question that I saw, we are talking about essentially sissies. That's the typical term. This is an idea of, there's two ways to look at it, and it's a very controversial topic within the trans community. I'm going to be as delicate as possible here. That lifestyle can be incredibly demeaning to people, and some people say, like, well, yeah, that's the point, but some people take it too far. In my opinion, it's just mine, though. But ultimately, what you are doing in this scenario is you are doing what's called accessing femininity through kink. And if that's your kink, that's fine. I'm not here to kink shame. However, so many people in the trans community have come through that process and come to the realization that they are trans. That's why we say accessing femininity through kink, because it's essentially a safe place. It's walled off as, oh, this is just a sex thing. You see this described a lot for cross-dressers as well, is that the reason they wear the clothes is because it gives them, like, positive sexual feelings. But what, my therapist would probably say is, cis people, for the most part, don't ask themselves these questions, which should say a lot to you, if you were the person that asked this question, or if this question applies to you. If you are getting something besides a sexual feeling from wearing clothing of the opposite gender, there's a good chance that you're trans. And it's going to take a while for you to go on that journey and figure that out for yourself. I'm happy to chat with you privately about it if you need someone to talk to briefly. I can even give you a referral to a therapist. But outside of that, that's a journey that you need to go on. I'm talking to a few people right now, helping them through this exact situation. So I'm more than happy to help, but it's a very complex topic, and if you are asking yourself this question, you probably have a lot more questions to ask yourself.
If you could meet one celebrity, famous person, influential person, dead or alive, who would that be?
Okay, I think I've answered this before, but I'm going to do it again. The obvious answer, I think, for a lot of people is Jesus, because we know that Jesus was a real person. The aspects of Christianity are its own thing. But I don't consider myself a Christian, so it's not why I would want to meet him. It would mostly be like, yo, bro, this is what's gotta happen. But beyond that, I try not to get into too much of the celebrity worship, as it were, because of my time working in PR for sports teams. I got to work with a lot of athletes, and the first thing that I learned from a lot of them is how much they're just normal people. This is just a job for them. They're not special. It's kind of part of my life philosophy is I'm not special, and that's okay. I'm not going to put myself down and say I'm terrible. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, like, everybody is special, but in the same sense, no one is. Like, just doing a job does not make them special. It's like these innate qualities. So just think about that. And so I think outside of that, I'd really love, and it's a shame because I had an opportunity to do this and I didn't. I would love to meet Stanley and just thank you for creating all of these wonderful characters that mean so much to me and to so many millions of people around the world. The last time that he was coming to Orlando for MegaCon, I could have gone, I could have bought tickets and everything. I didn't know at the time that I think that it was going to be his last trip to Orlando, and then he ended up dying like 9 months later. So I really missed out on that. It's probably one of my very few regrets of like a social event or anything like that I have.
Besides Disneyland, where would your dream vacation be?
And so I've gone on this vacation. Where would my dream vacation be? I've gone on this vacation, but it was very short. I was only there for one day, and I would love to spend weeks, if not like a full month. And to be frankly, I want to retire in this city, and that is Florence, Italy. It is without question the most beautiful city I've ever been in. Now, granted, I've not been to Paris, but I went to Florence, and then the next day we were in Rome, and I wanted to go back to Florence. That's how much I liked it. So it's just, the historic district is such an easy place to explore. It doesn't feel like touristied off in a sense, in that like yeah, there's tons of people around, but like you can just walk around. It doesn't feel like it's still a living city, and that's what I love about it. Is it it very much, it just seemed to fit my vibe, and I really, really want to experience more of that, and hopefully, you know, when things get better, I can do that again.
How did you and Lindsay meet?
All right, so we've been wanting to put this on camera for a while. How did Lindsay and I meet? And it's funny because Lindsay and I tell different versions of this story.
I tell the true version of the story.
I tell the true version because I have more information about it than she does. Okay.
I like my perspective better.
So, Lindsay and I met on Bumble. So, like, just there you go. Dating apps can be successful. But that's not the whole story. When we met on Bumble, what caught my attention initially, because the way I still actually use these apps, is I always do the paid version, and you might think like, oh, that's dumb. No, like the paid versions of dating apps are like a world of difference to the free versions. So with Bumble, with the paid version, and this is especially helpful as a guy, because I was still my old self back then, you can see who has swiped on you. So you don't have to waste your time swiping through a whole bunch of people that are never going to be interested in you. So I only focused on the people that were interested. And so Lindsay's profile got my attention because at the time she was a redhead and I have a thing for redheads. So I saw her, like I went and looked at her profile, and like immediately I knew, because with Bumble you have to reply within 24 hours of a match, or if you don't, it unmatches for you, or at least it did back then. I think it's changed now. So I used what's called an extend, and you can extend the timer, you know. So at the time, users got 1 per day in the free version of the app. So the story that Lindsay tells is that I used my 1 daily extend to pick her. Sorry to break her little heart, but because I was using the paid version, I had unlimited extends. I still only used 1 that day, but I could have used others if I wanted to. The reason that's important, though, the choice to use the extend is actually what got Lindsay's attention, because the extend when you use it, it notifies the other user, like, hey, this person really wants to talk to you. You should talk to them. So that got her attention. And with that day, we started a conversation that lasted 11 hours. Texting back and forth in Bumble before eventually moving to text messaging. And what's really cute is I still have that but the light just went out. I still have that conversation. I keep the Bumble app installed on my phone in part because I can go back and look at the very first conversation Lindsay and I ever had. And it's like the sweetest thing to see, like, the questions we were asking each other and all of that. It's kind of adorable. And sadly, it at some point switches to text message where, like, she gives me her number, and at that point the conversation just ends. But, like, I know it went on for hours after that. And because we had at some point scheduled a date, kept talking, and we enjoyed each other's company so much just talking that we actually moved up our date. I believe she canceled a date that she had planned to move our date up, and we've been together ever since. The lights are back. Sorry about that. Obviously, the hotel room, some of the lights are automatic. If you leave them on for too long, they shut off, apparently. It's weird. So, bonus time?
All right, bonus time. How are you feeling since your surgery?
All right, so for some of you, this episode is coming right after last week's episode where I talked about my orchiectomy. The surgery actually happened almost 3 months ago at this point. I'm actually feeling fantastic. Obviously, swelling is completely gone at that point. Everything still works, and that's all I'm going to say about that. It just feels different, but in all the best ways. Things feel a little bit more normal down there. As far as the effects of testosterone and everything that I was hoping to achieve by having the surgery, it actually, for the most part, has gone really well. I don't think I mentioned this in the last video because I don't know if I had the test results at that point, but my T level on my last blood check, or my second to last blood check at this point, was actually way higher than it had ever been, at least since I started my transition. Because when I started my transition, I was already having medically low T, for a variety of reasons, and that really dropped. I was down into the consistently single digits for the majority of my transition. Then all of a sudden it jumped up from like 9 to 39, and I was like, what's going on? Thought that was a little bit weird. So once I had the surgery, I was expecting it to tank again, and it hadn't just yet. My doctors explained that could just be like right at the given time that we took the test. It might have been slightly higher, but I'm in the 20s, and so I'm still really happy with that. I'm hoping to get down to single digits again soon. And I very well may be. So, but physically I feel great. Emotionally I feel great. At least about that. Lots changed in the time since I've had the surgery. But, recovery went really well. Lindsay was fantastic in helping me recover. My job at the time was great about giving me the time off, even though I didn't have PTO. There were some minor issues when I got back to work, just adjusting. I think that was the weirdest thing, was like physically adjusting to having to do stuff without my body being able to pull from a reservoir of testosterone to fuel things in the same way that we do with adrenaline. So adrenaline was having to work overtime. And the first time I overexerted myself, it had been a few weeks since I had done since I'd had the surgery. I was pushing a whole bunch of heavy boxes of Lego around the shop. After about 15 minutes of doing that, I had to stop, and I almost passed out because my body just wasn't used to that sort of physical activity. And so it's resulted in me not going back to the gym yet. I'm having to start looking for a trainer specifically so that they can be aware of these things and help watch me and like guide me through this process. So that's going slower than I'd like, but you know, I got more important things right now. So otherwise, very happy with the results. Yeah, I couldn't recommend the surgery enough for those of you that are transitioning, because those two particular parts really aren't necessary if you're going, whether you're going to go full bottom surgery or not, you don't really need them anymore.
That's it.
Okay. So that does it for this week's episode of Ask a Trans Woman. Hopefully, next week we will be able to be filming in our new office / YouTube studio. We don't know for sure yet. We're hoping to get in there next week. Actually, hopefully this weekend while we're filming this. But we don't know for sure. But hopefully in the next 2 weeks at minimum. So maybe you'll see us back here again, but hopefully not. Thank you again so very much for watching. Of course, like and subscribe, especially if you want to see more of these episodes. We are doing these every Wednesday at 7:30. We are actually sticking to a schedule lately. So, you know, be sure to watch out for those. And of course, oh, wait, what am I doing here? If you have questions, comments below. That's where we like to pull our questions, but we also get them from Twitter, Instagram. We'll be social posting all over the place for these questions, you know, and as well as the NGL app. So there'll be a link in the description below for that. So thank you again. And of course, as always, have courage and be kind, especially to yourself.
Did I brush you off?